Jason Greenblatt from the White House is in the Middle East this week, meeting with Israelis and Palestinians. Does the State Department have any representation in that delegation or involvement in the diplomacy that he's doing over there right now?
You are correct. He is headed to Israel and to the West Bank for the coming week. He'll be meeting there with Israelis and Palestinians. He'll have meetings with senior officials. He'll be there to do a lot of listening, discussing the views of the leadership in the region, getting their perspectives on the current situation and how progress towards eventual peace can be made. He'll meet with Prime Minister Netanyahu. He'll meet with President Abbas. He'll also meet with other Israeli and Palestinian officials, including security officials on both sides. And this, I'd characterize it as the first of what will become many visits to the region. I can say that he's been working closely with obviously within the NSC, but also with the State Department on this trip. And we're, of course, supporting him on this trip, and as well as a senior representative from the NSC who's traveling with him. I don't know that we'll have anybody from the State Department joining him on this trip. I'll try to confirm that. But of course, our embassy will be supporting him on the ground, as well as our consulate. Anyway.
Is the U.S. and Israel any closer to any kind of an agreement on settlements that the President and Netanyahu had spoken about? Is that a primary goal of this trip, to sort of wrap that issue up?
No, I mean, look, I think, as I said, he's really there to, as I say, get perspective, listen to both sides and how they come at looking forward to a peace process, or how they perceive getting to a peace process that's back on track. I think it's part of him trying to, as I say, just get a good perspective on possible ways forward. I think settlements will obviously be a topic of discussion, but I wouldn't predict there will be any kind of resolution of that issue. I think, as we said earlier, just a few weeks ago, with respect to settlements, we see them as a challenge that needs to be addressed at some point. But I think what's mostly important for this trip is it's an orientation trip for him to get hear perspectives on the ground of how we can create a climate that leads to eventual peace negotiations. Yes, go ahead.
Just for
please.
A little bit. Now, let me ask you the same question again. Has there been any coordination between Mr. Jason Greenblatt and the State Department before the trip?
Yes,
Was there
yes, and if I wasn't definitive enough about that, yes, there was.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't know, my answer to Josh, I just wasn't sure that there was anybody actually traveling with him from the State Department on this trip.
Now, I know last week you told us that Mr. Ratney will be assuming the file, or whatever, the peace file, replacing Mr. Lowenstein.
No, I want to be very clear on that. He'll have that portfolio within the front office of the. I mean, I'm getting into bureaucratic, but he won't be the.
In addition to the Syria issue,
correct.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, has there been any direct coordination between Mr. Greenblatt and Mr. Ratney?
Of course.
Okay. All right. And let me ask you a couple more on the phone call between the president and the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Did the president or the White House brief Secretary Tillerson on the call before or after?
I can only assume that he did. I'm not aware. I mean, I can't confirm that, but that's a normal.
You don't know for sure whether he's spoken.
It's a normal procedure for us to get.
It's a normal procedure.
Also, be consulted before a call and get briefed after the call, if not be on the call.
Okay, now can I stay on the topic just for one more?
Sure thing.
A couple more. The Israeli authorities arrested a Palestinian novelist, a woman. She wrote a novel called the Jackal's Trap, and they arrested her because apparently she talks about the process of recruiting informants and so on and all these things. Are you aware of this issue?
I'm aware. I've seen the reports. I'm not in a position, obviously, to weigh in on every security incident or every security action that's taken by Israeli authorities on the ground. I'm also not familiar with the novel. I've seen the title. Broadly speaking, we of course support freedom of speech, but I can't speak to it beyond. I would just have to refer you to Israeli authorities.
But it would be disturbing if you find out that she was arrested because of this novel, which is fiction, right?
Again, I
Writing
think,
literature and fiction.
I mean,
should not
in
be-
all honesty, Said, I'd have to look at the novel and what it, and hear what the Israeli authorities' concerns about it were. There are some times when even novels can reveal information or can incite in some ways. But as I said, generally speaking, not having read the novel, not having read any review of the novel, I just generally say we support freedom of expression.
Can you confirm that there was some kind of orientation briefing about the other players in this Middle East process? Because in the all other, before this administration, there is always the European Union plays a role in the peace process.
You're talking about
and
the peace
things.
process?
Yes. So is there about settlements, because the EU money goes into lot and which gets destroyed. So Brussels is always unhappy about the Israeli actions.
I mean, generally speaking, and I'd refer you to the White House and for the specific conversations that they may have had with members of the EU or with other states that are actively working towards Middle East peace. But generally speaking, we have those kinds of conversations all the time with the key players, mostly just to get a sense of, again, who's doing what, who's speaking to whom, and what are the prospects, and how do we get back? I think the overall, just to get back to Josh's question, and we've talked about this before, but what are the steps, constructive steps that both sides can take to put us back on a footing towards some kind of negotiated settlement? I think is what we're looking at now. So we're not there yet. I don't expect any big announcements out of this trip. I think, again, it's just an orientation trip for him to hear perspectives on the ground.